His grace, I'm doing good.
It's been quite a while since we hosted you.
Yes, it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Maybe I should start from this point. What he said at the time when he said it, I know he was not in power. Does it sound like the current situation we are confronted with?
No, it has no. Anyway, let me greet your listeners and the people of Odorodiudo. Well, it's clear that whatever he said, they had all not been able to transfer that onto the grounds today. Okay. It is very clear. I mean, we were told of the Georgesburg economy, which is more reliant on raw materials, having exporting them and all that. And we wanted to add value. We wanted to create our own wealth. We had heard them talk about gold refinery and all that. We had heard them of talking about physical discipline and all that, and none of that had happened since 2017 when they took over.
So everything that, because he said they were going to use tax incentives to grow the economy.
Well, we saw what they did in that regard when they said that there were nuisance taxes, and those nuisance taxes had to get out of the way. And their description of nuisance taxes are taxes that what you collect or are able to mobilize is not sufficient to actually implement whatever the reason was for the establishment of that tax.
Okay.
We are seeing it today.
Okay.
And yet we are not calling it nuisance taxes. I thought they would call it nuisance tax. We saw the introduction of the Momo tax or the e-transfer tax, and it does not live up to expectation. By their own standard, that should go off. We have seen COVID levy, that is to pay for COVID expenditures that were put up in 2020, 2021, and today we are still borrowing because of COVID, right? And therefore the COVID levy of 1% should also go away by their own standard. So nothing. They have lived up to nothing that proceeded out of their mouth back then.
But do you then see what he was complaining about? Because he said the taxes were hurting. They are hurting. That if you continue to tax people in difficulty, you are creating a cyclical issue, so you won't get the revenue, and then you will also be costing a lot of pain to the business. Is that what we are seeing? What he was complaining about? Is this a stronger version of what he was complaining about as we see today?
Well, taxes today are more excruciating.
Okay.
Again, he was speaking from an ignorant point.
Okay.
Any economy has its own ability to mobilize taxes based on the systems you run, based on the taxes, tax regime you are operating, and based on the people's culture in terms of tax payment. Okay. So it is not out of void. You can't just say that, we will collect 20% of GDP as taxes, when in fact you don't even have the infrastructure to do that. Okay. You can't say that when people don't feel energized to go out there and pay tax. Okay. When the tax system and regime you are operating is cumbersome, very complex for any ordinary man to even follow through and assess his own self and pay taxes. Okay. You know, you had not considered all these things before making pronouncement, and that is what has given him up. Okay. And that is why I'm saying that then he was an illiterate.
Illiterate?
Yes.
You're talking about someone who had a doctorate in finance.
Who?
Dr. Bawumia.
Yes.
How could he have been illiterate when talking about finance issues?
But that is what I have just told you. that if you knew the infrastructure in place,
Okay.
if you knew that the biggest cities in Ghana are Accra, Kumasi, Takrady, and probably we can add Tamale and other few places that are a bit. Both Takrady or the western side and Ashanti region contribute only 3% to our tax revenues.
3%.
Yes.
Kumasi is one of the viable commercial hubs of this country,
Yes.
with a lot of business going
Yes.
on there.
Yes. Yes.
How could they be doing 3%?
Exactly. And that comes with the culture of the people. You know, GRA puts people in shops in Kumasi, and it was a big issue. But that process had happened severally in Accra, several times, and it's still ongoing.
So what we were actually covering that Ashanti businessmen had complained about that has forced the GRA to withdraw those people is actually the practice here in Accra.
It has happened several times, and it is still ongoing. It was even intensified last year. I think for 3 months, October, November, December. Almost every manufacturing company had a GRA personnel sitting there.
Okay.
So it happens here. And that is why I say that for someone of his caliber should have known that culture plays a role in revenue mobilization when it comes to taxes.
Okay.
The attitude of the people plays a major role. And if you have not done anything to shift that attitude to that of people who are eager to pay taxes, then you cannot run your mouth in that manner.
So you are saying that in saying what he said and making the promises he made at the time, he should have known that the kind of system he had in place.
That's why I call him an illiterate.
Okay.
Then.
But perhaps maybe he had the right objectives, just that he didn't do the things that was needed to achieve what he said. Because if he had dealt with the cultural issue, dealt with the infrastructure, made the tax system a bit more simple over this period, he would have been getting closer to his goals, would he not?
I said he was an illiterate because he had not even then addressed the main issue.
Okay.
The main issue is actually saying that, look, because let's track back a bit. What was the challenges? The challenges that we had had a huge financial bang on our heads around 2014, 2015, and I mean, inflation had risen to about 17%. We were facing balance of payment issues and all that, and therefore we had gone to the IMF back then.
Yeah.
And so, coming from that, you said, look, we would need to take some of the nuisance taxes away. We will make our tax system more efficient. We'll collect more taxes by even taking away this ineffective taxes and all that. That was when we had the condom tax and all that. Fair and fine. The issue then, what took us there in 2014, right, is the fact that we couldn't manage our fiscal policy well.
Okay.
It was also true that then we had supply money, base money, to about 33%.
Okay.
And therefore inflation rose to the peak of about 17%. That is the truth.
Okay.
So from the backdrop of that and knowing this, I expect you to actually know that where we need to be as Ghana is that we would manage our expenditures, or our ability to spend will be determined by our ability to produce.
Okay.
So that we will not open up our fiscal deficit too much, which would mean that, and with a very poor capital market here, which will mean that you have to go for loans out there.
Okay.
And that is what they did. the height of NDC under President Mahama, deficit that was financed, the highest, was 9 billion.
Okay.
6 years on, from 2017, 12 billion to about 16 billion to about 23, 24 billion to 44 billion. Today, we are financing a overall deficit of 61 billion.
Cities.
Cities. So what he needed to have recognized then was the fact that when we grow expenditure faster than we are growing revenue year on year, we expose ourselves to such risk. And in a bit to manage the macroeconomy, BOG has always gotten it wrong. And the worst form of it is to finance government's pleasure and gratification within 1 year for over 40 billion. And that had caused the persistent inflation. For BOG to be that reckless, knowing that the currency has not performed well, is not performing well, even though we are having trade surpluses, yet they came in and began intervening in the foreign exchange market to keep the cedi at a reasonable place. And that eroded all our foreign reserve. Today, under this IMF program, we want to achieve a 3 months cover of reserve in relation to our imports. 3 months. When in fact, back then, we had about 6 months reserve. So tell me, if you are able to appreciate the challenges of Ghana at that time, it's clear to me that you were an illiterate and you couldn't have solved the issues.
So to you, at the time when they were talking about the taxes were hurting and everything, what they missed was the fact that Ghana needed to move from a point where you were just finding money to spend, even money that you don't have, to actually looking at the money you are generating before deciding what to spend.
Absolutely.
That they missed.
Absolutely.
But was that not what they talked about, fiscal discipline? Because they also mentioned that.
Well, we have seen their definition of physical discipline. Or we haven't. We have seen it. You see, when you talk of physical discipline, there is a reason why you project beyond the fiscal year you are budgeting for.
Okay.
So when you are budgeting for 2023, you are actually projecting 5 years on.
Okay.
And asking yourself that, okay, if I am borrowing this much, what will it look like in terms of my debt servicing?
Okay.
Right? Now, even let's take 2020, the joint IMF rapid credit facility document, and see the projections that were in there. At that time, they had projected 52 billion for 2020. What it meant was that their appetite to borrow, even in the midst of crisis, was so high. Yet they kept the subsequent years on the low, which meant that subsequently we are not going to borrow that much. But we saw the same height of borrowing after 2020. We have seen it in 2022. In fact, we are seeing the biggest of all in 2023.
Even when we don't have access to the...
Even though we don't have the access. Look, when people talk maybe because of what they say, that there will be hard times coming and all that, they feel people are crying for the doomsday to come or whatever. But let's put it in a picture form.
Okay.
Overall budget deficit is about 61 billion, out of which we have not financed any.
So if we look at our expenditure,
yes,
and look at the money that we are getting from taxes,
yes,
the money we project to spend, we do the subtraction.
Exactly.
What we have left to raise and find is 61 billion.
It's 61 billion.
As we speak now, there's no 61 billion on the table.
There is no 61
coming from
billion.
nowhere.
No 61 billion. What we have had as the first tranche amounts to 6 billion Ghana cedis.
Okay.
IMF is asking us to raise internally another 500 million,
okay,
which is also around 5 billion. Put together, you are looking at about 10 and 11 billion, right? Now, what it means is that being on the IMF program,
okay,
without any form of debt restructuring, we have only financed 11 billion out of the 61 billion.
Okay.
Which means that we have 50 billion more to raise.
Okay.
Now, the target in terms of our interest is to bring it down to about 14 billion.
Okay.
From 58 billion.
Okay.
That means that you have about 42 billion that has to go off from debt servicing.
Okay.
Right? Which takes out of the 50 billion left, you have about 8 billion more to raise.
Okay.
Because 42 minus the 50 billion.
Okay.
So with all the debt servicing, we will still need other debts to even rationalize the budget of 2023.
So with everything that we've done, suspend payment of interest, debt servicing and everything, all that, we will still need to go and find money.
8 billion more. Which they believe they can get it from the multilateral agencies.
Multilateral, as in you're talking about the same IMF?
Probably World
Bank.
Probably some of the creditors will give us some money.
Okay.
And that is back to what?
Debt. More debt.
The same debt.
Because I was coming to that. When I was listening to the IMF country chief, said there are 3 things they want to do. 1, they want to restore macroeconomic stability. The second thing he said was that they want to put us back on a sustainable debt path. So our debt needed to be sustainable.
Yes.
So they want to put us on a path where we are going to a sustainable debt.
Yeah.
You're saying that from what you're seeing, even in 2023 alone, you don't see that commitment.
No, I don't see it. The figures have not spoken to that. Now, to say, just imagine that the major lines in our budget expenditure is goods and services, capital expenditure,
okay,
right, debt servicing, and then compensation, which is payroll costs.
Okay.
We have singled out debt servicing,
okay,
and we are treating it.
Okay.
But we have left all the others untouched.
Capital expenditure is not touched.
Everything is at
interest and
original.
compensations
is the only thing.
Okay.
Compensation is also not touched.
Okay.
Compensation today is 44 billion.
You're spending 44 billion on the limited number of people on the public
Exactly, payroll.
Okay.
Which is 1.9 times of our revenue, program tax revenue of 176 billion.
So, more than half.
Yeah. So it means that for every Ghanaian worker we pay 1 cedi in a whole fiscal year, is only able to return 1.9. That is how much we are getting from the Ghanaian worker on the payroll of government. From 2016 of 2.5, 36 billion as against compensation line of 14 billion. So tell me if we have improved as a nation when we talk about fiscal consolidation.
So now you're even raising issues of efficiency in the public, in terms of even employment.
This has been the most inefficient government ever.
So we're recruiting more people into the public service, and we are seeing less results.
Exactly.
In terms of how it impacts how much government is able to raise to pay those people.
Right. You are absolutely right.
Because you see, now we said we are at 44 billion.
Yes, we are at 44 billion.
14 billion in
2016. Today we are at 44 billion.
30 billion.
Exactly. In the space of what? 6 years.
So then I'm now going to the IMF arrangement.
Yes.
Because now it is clear that as far as you're concerned, and you have dismissed this over and over again, this Russia-Ukraine COVID matter, you've dismissed. So I won't ask you again.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you've dismissed it over and over again. To you, it's a matter of expenditure against revenue. And this government has engaged in massive expenditure. Revenue has not performed as well to match it for you, whilst debt keeps going up.
Exactly.
And it means that you have to find more money to pay interest. So 2 things I'll ask you. The objectives I've mentioned. One, what do you see as being on a sustainable debt path? What do we need to do?
Well, to be on a sustainable debt path, I think we all know what we need to do. Fiscal consolidation.
The same word comes back.
The same word comes back.
Okay.
But you see, what we normally looks at when we are talking about fiscal consolidation is normally to raise more revenue.
That is how we see it.
Yes.
Raise more revenue.
Raise more revenue. The programs that were sent to Parliament for us to raise extra 4 billion to this budget, right? The new taxes and all that. It is as a result of fiscal consolidation.
So
it is as to say that as for our expenditure is untouchable. As for our appetite, it cannot be lowered. In the IMF press conference, they are talking about front-loading macroeconomic disciplines. As opposed to what? Front-loading government flagship programs. I mean, someone should explain that to us.
So even the IMF is agreeing to raising more revenue as against cutting down on our...
Exactly. It's telling you that. Put in operations, front load operations that would make you more sustainable, rather than putting first your flagship programs that has not generated any results.
Okay. So ideally by now, we should be putting all those so-called flagship projects on the table and deciding, is it still sustainable to keep is it one district, one factory running in the manner in which
you will
have.
be a better economist than Bawumia.
I'm trying to.
Absolutely. There is no way out except to do that. That 8 billion should be cut out of either our capital expenditure or our compensation line.
And that is where the matter of the political appointments you have made, first thing, you have to reduce them drastically.
Yes.
Your ministers, the numbers need to go down. The people you are appointing as presidential staffers, you need to watch those numbers. Some of the appointments do not make sense. And then perhaps, because I've heard suggesting that even within state institutions, the amount of employments that have been made.
Look, even the flagship programs, the moment we let go will mean that there will be a reduction on compensation.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We have employed in the name of those
of those, because you have a secretariat for 1D, 1F, you have a secretariat for planting, for food, you have employed people who are looking at planting for food and sending people out there and all that. You have employed based on your flagship programs.
Okay.
And those become static.
Okay.
Unless you do away with those programs, you cannot do away with the staff and the compensation related to them.
But why not restructure? Instead of creating a secretariat, put it under a ministry that's already existing.
Well, that is what probably should have been done. But that is not what they did. It was an opportunity to employ people. COVID was an opportunity to employ people. Now, beyond COVID, you would still have to pay compensation for these persons. It will not go away because COVID had slowed. It will not go away because there is no COVID. It will still remain as costs to us. And you see, in all this, I think the IMF press release stated clearly how incompetent our BOG has been. And if I am Dr. Addison, with this press conference, I will resign. Sena, what I have been saying here severally, that our inflation was not caused by Russia and Ukraine. Check the appendices on under the IMF press release. They said base money. That means money we created, BOG created, the central bank created.
Okay.
Between 2021, 2022 alone was over 283%. From $19.9 million to about 57 or so, million dollars. That means the BOG produced more than 283% of money in circulation as of 2021 compared to that of 2022.
Produce, which means print.
Of course. What else? It was in this studio that I said that it is the printing house that is causing us a persistent inflation, and not Russia and Ukraine.
The printing?
Yes, the printing. And financing government businesses with printed money. That is the weakness in fiat money. And that is what we did.
But is the BOG governor also not subject to the thinking of the economic management team? Or is he supposed to have acted a bit more independently?
But who again is at the economic management team? Who is the head? Who is there? The names that we had mentioned, Dr. Jambafo, Dr. Bawumia, Alan Tremontaine. Name them. They have exhibited their incompetence. This is the height of any incompetence you can mention.
My question is, what could the BOG governor have done when a whole government perhaps
should have been disciplined enough not to finance government business with printed money?
If that's the order.
What is the order?
Because
as against you would want to open the fissures of the economy than to protect it as a governor who is taking salary.
But it's because of the MPP government that he's here. Without President Akufo-Addo winning, he wouldn't be sitting at the BOG.
That is the difference, and that ought to be the difference between professionals and non-professionals. Don't tell me Dr. Addison was a guru boy somewhere and we brought him. He wasn't. Me, Nii Yarboi Annan, sitting here, if you put me at a place of such sensitive nature and you are ordering me to do something, right, that will go very wrong in the near future, I will tell you, take your job back. Because I cherish the little, what should I say, the little respect, the little, yes, industry respect and whatever I have. Maybe this is his retirement job or whatever. Maybe, yes. He won't go elsewhere. Because he has been the most incompetent. And that is why the IMF will want someone to come and sit at the BOG.
But how does that even sound to you? Because there are two things that have happened. The IMF have somebody who is stationed at the Bank of Ghana. Now they are talking about signing a memorandum of understanding. How does that sound to you that we've gotten to the point where they basically have to station police sort of?
Yeah, we were told from the beginning, like we heard, that these are guys from Yale, they are the best, and they can cope with any situation. And we brought them in, voted for them, and they came in and they have showed us what they have gotten. Now, look, how does it sound? Preposterous. Annoying. Very annoying. That you knew what you were doing will cause us a lot of challenges. We were in this country when Dubois went to the vetting committee at Parliament and actually made mention that COVID had slowed import and therefore the demand on the foreign currency had equally slowed, and that is why the cedi is performing. The next moment, Dr. Addison was on air saying that that is not the case. Rather, the case is that we as BOG had intervened. You intervened with what? You intervened with our reserves and you depleted our reserve. We were in this country that BOG allowed foreign entities to participate in our local market, in our local capital market, to the tune about 25% of the issues. And in February 2022, 2 billion was liquidated by these foreigners, and that was when the currency started suffering. This is well covered by the IMF documentations and reviews. Yet when you meet them, they tell us stories as if we don't know what was happening. This was a man who realized that sitting at the BOG, realized clearly that demand deposit was shooting up.
Ghana's gold.
Inflation will go high, yet did not see the reason to actually tighten fiscal policy rates. Until August, he was sleeping. So clearly, the IMF had said that we have physical challenges and monetary challenges, and we need to solve both at the same time. And that is what is going to bring pain to us. A lot of pain.
Fiscal monetary challenges. So if you say a lot of pain, already, I think the last time we spoke, you were complaining about the taxes,
Yes.
their collection, and the impact it was having on businesses.
Yes.
So the pain has started.
Yes.
In fact, even with the debt restructuring.
We should expect more in
But
the
this is just the
revision.
beginning.
Yes, in the revision of this budget. This budget will be revised, and Ghanaians should expect more. Elevated taxes.
Taxes going up.
Yes.
VAT has gone up. Oh.
Well, I cannot show government or tell government where he's going to push up or he's not going to push up. But trust me, we are to raise $500 million more. Whether it will come from increasing prices of petroleum products,
As has just happened.
of course. Of course.
So we're supposed to raise $500 million is give or take close to $6 billion.
Yeah.
Oh, we are supposed to find $6 billion in this economy.
Yeah.
It's $6 billion because you understand the way businesses work and everything at this time. Is $6 billion easy to raise it within this, even if you raise taxes?
No. I told you that the taxes they raised was to bring in about some 4 billion. And I told you it's going to fail. So you can imagine.
So increasing taxes, even that will fail.
Yeah, it will fail.
So what that means is that in order to find that money, they have to increase the pain level.
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
Workers should be ready to pay more PAYE.
Really?
Yes.
And the income tax that they deduct from our salaries,
Of course.
you suspect.
Oh, I'm saying that it will have to go up. They have no choice. We will all be a target.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Nobody will be left out of.
Well, I don't know who. Maybe those in government will be left out. But apart from those in government, I don't know who else will be left out.
Which other things do you expect to change because of? Because you have been talking about government's appetite. As we speak now, you seem to be suggesting that the IMF is only on government's neck to increase revenue. But the IMF is not on government's neck to check its appetite.
Exactly.
And you don't expect that to change.
Because they expect us to still be on the route of debt.
So they don't have a problem with the fact that we are
No.
highly indebted.
No.
What they have a problem with is the fact that we are not raising enough money to pay those debts.
Exactly. So they just need you to be sustainable, to service your debt. That is all the program is about.
But if you're not sustained, because I don't know how this will sound, but at this point, then how do you revive this economy? Is that the way? Okay, let me ask, is that the way to revive the economy at this time?
Well, the program is not to revive the economy. I don't see that.
Okay.
The program is just to make you, is to give you some strength to be able to generate more revenue, to be able to service your debt and go back to the original position of servicing your debt. We are only surviving today because we have suspended debt servicing. So they want you to come onto the path of servicing your debt, and then you can, from there, take care of yourself.
Because the program, isn't that the other objective is inclusive economic growth?
And when they say inclusive economic growth, what does that mean? That we will all be given playing field to compete based on our strength and not based on some nepotism, favoritism. It's not going to happen under this government. All inclusive, that we will all have the same opportunities. It is not going to happen. Tell me that even if we cannot collect taxes the way we collect taxes in Greater Accra, as same as the way we do in other places, then tell me what that all-inclusive means.
So if the IMF program is not a solution but rather worsen our plight, what is the solution?
The solution is for us as a nation to come together and understand that nobody is going to solve our challenges for us. We have to be up and doing to solve our own challenges. Solving our challenges or living up to our challenges would certainly mean that we identify things we do that does not help this economy and ensure that we don't go on those tangents. This economy has a limit and boundaries. That when you break those boundaries, you will crash. It is clear that if you increase money supply, M2 plus, above 16%, we will have issues with inflation. Come to think of it, 2021, we had over 451 billion in terms of GDP, nominal value. Today, it's 650, maybe 625, or I should say over 600 billion. What has been the effect? At over 600 billion, we are seeking to raise 176 tax revenues. At 451, we were raising 104 billion. Or 145 billion, yes. So you grow your GDP so well, so high, a jump of over 200 billion, but it means nothing in terms of your revenue generation. One of the major reasons why that ended up giving us nothing is because of the persistent inflation that peaked at 54%.
Okay.
Because I had said here in the studio that 10% of inflation will give you 1% of GDP. But 10% of production will give you more than 2, 3, and sometimes 4% in terms of your revenues. So you can actually agree that the path to real growth is growing our real sectors and with a strong financial sector. And how we achieve this is very important. You achieve this by government actually pulling away from business. And when I say pulling away from business, I'm saying that they should not be corrupt.
Corruption.
Yes. Because when government officials are heavily participant in business and in government business and contracts.
Radio Gold.
That is one of the ways or the leakages in this economy. That is one thing. It is also to promote commercialization in our people. And thirdly, innovation. If you want to know whether this country is being innovative, check the number of patencies we have.
Patencies as in?
Well, when one is innovative and I have created something like this and is able to do certain things that hitherto was not available, I will certainly have to patent it.
Okay. Okay.
Japan earns so much in terms of services because of licenses and patencies and other stuff that people have to pay to the Japanese economy.
Okay.
So they are heavily indebted, but they are sustainable because they are able to raise more revenue, over 200 billion out of these service areas in terms of licenses and patencies and all that. This is not an innovative economy.
Okay.
And that is why we should push more resources into R&D.
Okay.
And make sure that we move the culture of people to commercialization. Our culture here has been petty trading, which don't feed on our innovation. And it is the duty of government to actually provide a linkage between our commercialization and innovation.
So new ideas that we commercialize.
Absolutely. This is a country where you bring up an idea, it will be killed. It will be killed by tax policies. It will be killed by the process of getting patency for it. It will be killed by government over-reliance on our financial sector, so you cannot go there and borrow. Maybe we should find time and just on this subject, analyze what we do in this economy that affects the industrialization and innovation of our people.
Because actually there are a lot of small Ghanaian businesses that will tell you, once you start, one, you can't even find the money. And when you're able to find the money and you don't even have the kind of tax breaks that people who walk into this country in the name of foreign investment get. Actually,
under this government, sometimes I regret even putting up a company.
You regret that?
Yeah. Waking up to the office is a huge challenge because what are you working for?
Is it not profitable, or is it just that they are taking away majority of what you're earning?
They are taking majority of what I'm earning, and they are not making the environment conducive for me to operate. The field of margin is totally taken by government.
The margin, you mean
margin,
like
yes.
The profits?
Assuming, with all the inflation going on and here and there and that, this year, I plan increasing my service fee by 2-3%. Immediately, government came in and says, give me that 2-3% in terms of indirect tax, VAT, from 12.5 to 15%. Now, the moment I go to my client with a 2% increase, the new rates applies. my prices are no longer attractive. You are killing my business. If you sell a pen, everybody knows that the big pen you are having, nobody will buy it at 100 Ghana cedis. So there is a price expectation by consumers. Beyond that, they will not patronize it. They will find a cheaper alternative. They will shift. Marginal utility. So, if the acceptance level is at 5 cedis, a big pen, and you are already at the 5 cedis, and government comes in the next moment and says that I'm adding 2% to it, or 2.5% to it, that makes you attractive. Will you be able to increase? Faced with elevated prices on the market, your workers will be expecting more in terms of salaries. Government's number one business is to create an enabling environment for us all to operate in. And that is what the IMF is saying, that you need to create all-inclusive a space for everybody to be able to make money. It is when we make money that we save some, and that reflects in the financial sector. With the financial sector actually losing out heavily with all that has gone on, clearly signifies that the real sectors are not doing well.
Okay.
So you can imagine what we have to deal with when it comes to business. Radio Gold is business. Tell me how many adverts you used to have, and today how many adverts come your way. Because people or businesses have found a new way to advertise. They are looking at the cheaper alternative by going to social media. Either two, they will bring that resources here. People are prepared to pay Facebook, Twitter, and all what have you to actually advertise today rather than the traditional media. What you are doing is killing an industry. Until recently, VAT was not charged on anything you buy on Facebook or the adverts you purchase on Facebook until recently. So look at the advantage they have had. Outside the economy of Ghana, we gave people this advantage. Yet,
How is that being killed?
We did not give a dog chance to our own people to operate with it.
Nii Yarboi Annan, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Sina.
Yeah. Nii Yarboi Annan is a financial analyst and a member of the NDC in Odododio. That's very important.
Very, very.
Well, Ochami Bajimba is up next with the mid-morning show. Until then, we are back tomorrow with another edition of the Gold Morning Conversation. I'm Sena Nombo from the team and I. Have a lovely day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Wuna wasi nantia okwe
osode ya ria prophet to me and say obibini ba ya wa beso Dr. Dwe ye
Edu Herbal Clinic and Jimmy Sanu. Nature phone no. Ehne yamfa manko. Nanso ankosi aga.